There we go. We are live on Facebook early this Wednesday. Thank you, everybody, for being here earlier than our normal scheduled time. I messed up my calendar. Anyway.
It happens.
Well, it's okay, right?
Yeah, life happens, man. Yeah.
Life happens. Anyway, this is Mastering the Drop, a real view of recovery. For those of you who don't remember Dee Dee, because it's been a really long time.
It's been a minute.
Miss Dee Dee from Your Wild Pantry is here. She's back with us. And I just love that we're in the topic that we're in, because Dee Dee and I have had many conversations about our relationship with food and the emotional purposes behind it. Because, some of us just truly enjoy food, and we really,
That would be me.
And I mean, although I don't know, there was definitely a period of time in my life where I restricted it. It was kind of that love-hate relationship. But since then I truly love it, and I enjoy spending time creating with it. But there are so many people out there that rely on or utilize food as a coping. Instead of alcohol, they go to the brownies or to the ice cream. And so anybody that's listening, please translate whatever we're talking about with food with whatever your thing is, whether that's shopping or, exercising or alcohol or, prescription medication or illicit drugs, whatever it is for you, you can absolutely translate what we're talking about today to that. But I mean, if you think about it, food has been part of our life since the beginning of time, since
it has to be
got here. And it is something that is absolutely required to continue living. So, as a baby, we cry, we get a bottle. As a child, we go to the doctor and we get a shot. And so we get a lollipop. We fall down, we scrape our knee, we get a popsicle, we have a birthday, we get a cake. We get a promotion at work. We have a big overindulgent celebration with food and alcohol and all the things, and so on and so forth. We have actually conditioned ourselves to see food as an appropriate reward or self-soothing tactic. And so some of us can see it, but aren't making the connection to the fact that it's not appropriate. Others of us see that we use it to the level that is inappropriate. We know I'm sad, I'm depressed. I just sat down, I ate that entire bucket of Ben and Jerry's all in one sitting, but I don't know how to stop myself when I'm in that emotional state. And then there are others that are just completely in the dark about how they assign a job to certain things for emotional purposes. So, okay, so that was a lot.
It is a lot. And I think that if there is anybody watching or anybody who has had this kind of information that you just, that recap, everybody, sometime in your life, you have used food as a reward, as a coping mechanism, as a project, as whatever it is, whether it was in a singular moment or maybe at different points in your life. And I think that's just human nature. But it's about whether or not, like you said, is recognizing when it becomes an issue and how we recognize certain patterns as self-harm and what it does, how it manifests itself. And that looks like so many different things, and it looks different for you, and it looks different for me, and it looks different for, you know, Joe Blow and Susie Q and all the other people out there. It's so individualized. And so I think that it's probably difficult for people to say, well, I don't have the issue that that person has, so it's not an issue. And it becomes like, it's easy to just like, oh, that's not me.
So then there's the after effect.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's like this thing. So we act, we act or react to an emotion, whether it's knowingly or unknowingly, and then we have this. Okay, I've self-soothed, right? Ate the bucket of Ben and Jerry's. Now it's the after effect. So now we have the self-loathing. We have the the berating that goes on in the head. We have the bargaining that we do. Okay, I'm not going to do that next time. We try to tell ourselves it's okay that there's it's okay. I did that because that was a really bad experience. And so on and so forth. But if we fast or go backwards and we look at it, really what I've just described is step 2 and 3, which if we do step 1 appropriately and we don't skip it, which most people do, the outcome, the result, the after effect is different. Right? Bear with me here, because so if we see, and this is Wednesday, and I've already been talking about this topic all week, so so if we're paying attention and we're saying, I want to visualize my emotion. Sure, everybody gets angry. Everybody experiences fear. Everybody has stress. Everybody is joyous and happy and celebrates. Like, none of these emotions are more important than the other. All of these emotions are telling us something that we need to know about ourselves in that moment. That could be, if you're angry, frustrated, irritated, agitated, that might be, you're telling yourself, hold up, man, you're too rigid. You're not being flexible. You're digging your heels in, trying to be right all the time. And you're just creating a fight that doesn't need to be fought. That it could be that. It's not people's most favorite one to identify. People generally like to continue on being right. But then there's also that I'm sad. Why am I sad? And which is fine. It's okay to be sad. You want to sit with that for a minute and really honor that, there's been some sort of a loss or an experience that is sad, hurtful, whatever it is. But how can I choose wisely going forward? Just because we have an emotion doesn't mean we have to be prompted or triggered to do some form of an action. It can just be, I need to see this, I need to feel this, I need to experience it so that I can learn, change, shift, grow, morph, whatever, move on afterwards. And then I can visualize myself letting it go. Because if the time has come and gone, it's something that's already in the past, that it's no sense in carrying it around with you, ruminating, wallowing, and languishing. So if we allow ourselves to experience the emotion, sit in it and move through it, then it's time to eat, right? It's not because of that emotion. We now have, this ability to say, you know what, I'm sad, and my physical body does still need to be nourished, because so often, there's a lot of people that just don't eat because they're emotionally distraught, and that's not okay either. We really need to, look at food as fuel. So if we do it correctly and we experience the emotion, allow it to move on, shelf it, trash it, whatever we got to do, and then say, okay, I got to fuel my body so that it can function properly. The after effect is what? Clear mind, decisive action, right? Effective responses, and action that will promote the outcome that you would prefer to have. Right? Mm-hmm. That sounds good, right?
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. So, so when we're, because you and I both love food. You love helping people put together, like plans and shopping lists and menus or recipes and things like that. So how do we keep it fun and keep the emotion out of it?
I think that, like, for me, my clients are people who struggle with sustaining and maintaining a healthy eating pattern that meets their individualized needs and doesn't overwhelm them. I think that any type of change, whether it's about your physical health, your mental health, your environmental health, whatever that is, change is hard. We all know that as human beings. And so when we have a new pattern that we know we need to be on, but we don't know how to get there, those speed bumps sometimes just become, oh, nope, never mind. I'm not going to do it. It's an easy way to walk away. And so I like being able to find out through just a handful of questions during an intake or a conversation, why are you here? What are the things you struggle with? What are your pain points? And being able to customize solutions that are achievable, that meet people where they are, and allow for flexibility, because where they are now might not be where they're going to be in a month. And how do I then partner with their nutrition professionals to make sure that our end goals are all the same and I am making the stress as low as possible for people to then be able to use food as fuel and still enjoy it. And, my background in disability, I think, really has informed how I work with clients, because in the disability world, everything's supposed to be anyway individualized, individualized education plans, individualized transition plans, individualized habilitation plans, individualized living plans, individualized. And so I've learned how to try to meet people where they are. And so being able to do that in a way around food as fuel and food as a way to not stress you out is I thrive on that. And that makes me feel better about actually how I eat. So it really, what goes around comes around. When I'm doing plans for people, I remind myself, I'm like, oh, yep, I need to tweak my plan because of how I know how I'm feeling, because I know where my emotional state is in any given week. And so I feel like that helps, I hope, helps me continue to be in tune with where people are and where they need to be, and how food can be not a stress point for them.
Love that. I love all of that. I think it's, a large part of why we work so well together, because if we look at the work that we do at TLR with the Healthy Living Food and Mood Journal, it's about that investigation process. Because if we're, a lot of people do this way, and I think it's a half measure. This is what I ate. This is how I was feeling before, and this is how I feel now. And it's all very linear. Mm-hmm. It's within that same time period. Whereas I like to look at, and I feel that it's extremely important to look at, the hours leading up to when I ate, what did I eat, and the hours following and in between and throughout the day. So if you only are eating 4 times a day, we got to check with your mood and your emotions and your affect more frequently. Mm-hmm. Everybody's digestion system works differently. Like mine is extremely slow, mm-hmm. really, really slow. And so we need to, know how I'm fueling my body participate in my emotional state throughout the entire day. Because I've had clients that come in and they have really healthy choices in their dietary practices. Like the foods that they choose are not the issue. It's the order in which mm-hmm. they ingest them that is causing more problem, more issue, or the imbalance of where, because if you're putting your daily intake of protein smack in the middle of the day and you have no protein anyplace else, like you're going to have some issues. Mm-hmm. You're going to have some issues. And if you're highly focused on a specific diet, my least favorite word.
Exactly.
Right?
That 4-letter
I'm on the
word.
keto diet. I'm on the this diet. I'm on the that diet. Don't make it a diet. Make it a lifestyle. Make it a way that, you do it. And that we'll probably get into that conversation a
Well,
little
I
bit.
mean, we've said this before, is that diet is not a noun. I mean, when you talk about a keto diet or a paleo, and I'm not trying to call those out, they're just an example of you're on a diet as a noun, and dieting being this, and that diet it can be a noun in that it's a way of life. It's a path forward. It's not a restrictive.
Well, people
I use
use
little air
it
quotes when I do that, and so
people use it as a period of time. Like, I'm going to do the whole 30. People use that incorrectly all the time, right?
Yeah.
We've had this conversation. People use it as a way to lose weight when it's really supposed to be a way to identify what foods work best for you and what foods do not. Anyway, so when we go on a diet, or we're trying this new diet, I'm going to try the intermittent fasting way of whatever, right? Which, of course, intermittent fasting is good, but that should be naturally happening when you go to sleep. Like, don't eat after dinner and then, by the time you're up and ready for breakfast, like, hello, you've got your 12 or 14 hours, right? Super easy. Anyway, when you're all in, and it's for a specific time period, then when you come out of it, what do most people do? They're all out. It's not a way of life. It's an event. And it's an event that is time limited. And then we go on. Instead of saying, let me investigate how food is impacting my life. Let me spend time with this and allow myself to identify what works best for me, mind, body, and spirit, right? We have to consider a lot of things. We're made up of organs, and our organs have needs, and each organ has different needs. And all of these things, right? And emotionally, we have needs, and physically, we have needs. Like, you're not going to put latex paint in the gas tank of your car. So why are you putting sludge in your body, right? Why are you putting sludge in your body? And so we don't want it to be an event. We want it to be a way of life. And that means 80% of the time being in a way that, fosters, the level of functioning that you prefer. And I can tell you guys, like, and that I haven't even caught you up to this, but over the last year, I've been really working on removing all prescription medications, which I've been successful at doing. I've struggled, and that they switched me from rheumatoid arthritis to mixed connective tissue disease,
right?
All the diagnoses, and I just said
all the things, yes.
Yeah, right. So I'm doing this with dietary practices. I'm living pain-free. I don't have inflammation. I'm not having flare-ups. I'm not having anything, and I'm not utilizing prescription medication. But I'm spending a lot of time identifying how what I put in fuels me, how it serves me, and what works best for me. Because I am a unique individual amoeba, and I have different needs than the next person. So we don't want it to be this all in, all out, all in, all out. We want to look at the emotional purpose for going on a diet.
Yep. When people come to me, so I partner, like I said, I partner with a lot of nutrition professionals, and they refer people to me who struggle with how to implement, maintain, etc. But occasionally I'll get someone as an individual that comes to me and says, hey, I need your help. I want you to, do meal plans for me. Great. Tell me about why you want that. Is keto, we mentioned keto, I want to do keto. Tell me about why you want to do keto. Is it because of weight loss? Is it because, clinically you need that? Like, I try to ask some questions, because it's not hard for me to figure out, not being a clinician, when a clinician is needed.
Yes.
And to say, the keto was developed for a very certain thing, and there is a use for it. 99% of people probably don't even do it correctly. And that's why they fail at their goal. And so if they're trying to lose weight versus regulate versus, having all these other issues, I know when it's time for me to step aside and make sure that they have the support they need for that individualized need. And so it's an exploration, and it changes, because what I have a client who's been with me for like 9 months, and their dietitian said, I want them to do this. Great. We did that, knowing full well and good it was going to be a limited thing, to try to figure out what was going to work and what wasn't. They were testing to feel, how is this going to make this person feel, and at different times of day, and which proteins are working, which ones aren't, and how is this person's digestion going? How is their gut feeling, and what's that impact on their inflammation and their mood, all of the things you just said. And so knowing that I can flex with what people need and change that to meet where they are at the moment, and let them know it doesn't have to be permanent. It's okay. And to give themselves some grace, unless they have really specific allergies, or they have Crohn's, or they have celiac, or they have like things that are really going to make them very ill. I tell people to try to give themselves some grace. And you said 80-20,
right?
I tell, I know for a fact that dairy and I are not always friends. I don't have a lactose intolerance, but sometimes we are not friends. I do not know what I ever did to dairy, but apparently I ticked it off. And so, but sometimes pizza. Sometimes I want pizza, but I go into it now knowing and having that knowledge and making the decision in an informed manner, knowing what that may very well do to my system. And it's a trade-off, and I have to be willing to make it. And I have to give myself that grace and know that I need to come back to center.
And I think even more importantly too, and this is a conversation I have with myself regularly, exactly what you're talking about. 80% of the time, and I try to do 90% just because for me with the gastroparesis, the really slow moving, it could take me 4 or 5 days to recover. But I go into it knowing like, well, okay, am I going to the pizza because pizza sounds like it tastes good? Or am I looking for the comfort of the bread?
Exactly.
On the emotion, right? Because
so I try to make sure that I'm asking myself those questions before I just say, oh, I just want pizza. Is it because I'm lazy in that moment? Is it because I had a rough day and I want to deal with it? Is it because why am I making that choice? Knowing what some of the blowback may be. And if I can make my through that decision process, and it happens relatively quickly, is now I can decide yes or no.
Conditioned ourselves to do it. That's why it happens quickly. Several people that I've been talking to over the course of the week, just in tying in, let's look at the emotion that is prompting us to act and why. And so, the thing is it's not easy. It's not easy, and it's extremely difficult for a lot of people because, again, in childhood, and I'm not even talking about just with food, I'm just talking about as a child, when you're born, you cry for relief and you get that. And then as you grow up, you start doing things for yourself, but sometimes we don't learn that crying. And I'm not talking like everybody cries and then soothes themselves, but if I'm uncomfortable, I got to go find something else to make me feel better. And as we, get into adolescence, this is where a lot of issues start to happen, because this is where, in the latter part of childhood into adolescence is really where we need to be able to start soothing ourselves without relying on the comfort of other things. So any parents, if you're listening, that have, small children, like, how are you teaching your children to self-soothe? And what are you giving them as, coping mechanisms? Because this plays out, right? I used to throw tantrums and stomp down the hall, and I would, whatever. We have to learn different ways. And so now we go, okay, I don't need to rely on, anything other than maybe a good conversation with somebody if I'm really struggling. Like, do I know how to reach out in times where it's over my head, outside of something I've learned already or whatever? Because otherwise we continue to go to something else. So you may be saying, okay, I'm going to control the food, right? So anyway, backing up, it's not so easy for everybody. People are like, okay, and sure, we've taken the time to condition it as a way of being. It's not even a lifestyle for me. It is a way of being. It is who I am. I have to honor, value, and appreciate all of my emotions and be very thoughtful in what I do going forward in all action. And that keeps me out of alcohol. That keeps me out of restricting food or binging food or getting into the sugar or over shopping, because that's a problem, right? Because we go, oh, if I had this right blazer, I'd fit in. I'd feel important. Whatever. Like, your clothes don't define you either. So, but they should make you feel good. Anyway, but so we want to be working on conditioning this as a way of being, so that we are not bouncing from one thing to another. So, okay, overindulging on food. Now I'm going to go on a diet. I'm all in. I'm tossing in a vigorous exercise routine, and I'm all into that. I'm working out 3 hours a day, 6 days a week. None of that is lifelong manageable and maintainable, because I'm in such a hurry to arrive at this change I'm creating in life, right? I'm going to lose however much weight. I'm going to stop emotional eating. I'm going to whatever. And it's all in this short period of time that we want to make it happen. Usually people have a very, right? Like all of you folks that, your resolutions have already ended. And you're already on that slide back. Observe yourself, see how much you're heading back to the conditioned way you have always been. We have to take time to condition it as a new way of being. And 30 years of conditioned way of being, 40, 50, 60 years of conditioned ways of being isn't going to correct itself, change itself, and have a smooth neural pathway in 30 days, in 21 days. I don't care. 21 days to change a habit. Okay, yeah, change it, but do you condition it to be in a new way? No, people don't give that much of an effort, right? I say we got to go through our first everything, which is a year at least. I mean, I have clients that stay engaged with me for 2 to 4 years while we're watching for complacency. It's not, it's not as vigorous of a coaching, as it is at the beginning, but to condition it as a new way of being takes time. You will lose the 50 pounds over time if you create a way of being that will foster that in a way that isn't crash and restricting and punishing. And then now you've got to go back and start rewarding yourself again because whatever.
Yep. Absolutely.
My sermon for the day.
It's valid though. And as I said at the beginning is that, and as you said, whether we're talking about food, whether we're talking about substances, when we're talking about shopping, whatever those actions are, is that we've all been in one of those buckets at one point or another, in one way or another. And it's part of the human condition in some ways to lean into ways to manage or to cope or to manipulate, but it's coming back to center in a way that's healthy and sustainable. And that's so I have had some clients who just want to do 1 month with me. I'm like, okay. But generally the ones that are successful with just 1 month and are happy with only 1 month are the ones that are like, I know that I want to start work. Like I had one person who said, I want to start eating more plant-based. I just don't know what it looks like. Can I get a sense of what a month of plant-based eating would look like? I just as a feel. Great. That they knew that was an exploration. They stated that as the goal. We did that. They were so happy, and they found a way to say, now I can do, 4 or 5 days that are plant-based and not feel weird about it and not feel uncomfortable about it and feel really good about it. It's great. They can incorporate. But that's a really small subset of the types of folks who work with me or that I work with, because their goals are so much more granular and more overwhelming. And as you said, 21 days to this or 30 days to that as a permanent fix, it doesn't work. And
Right.
so that's why, people come to the end of, like, say, a 3-month stint with me, are regularly staying on, because they're recognizing that it's not just about, here's your plan. It's about the support structure that goes with that makes it sustainable.
Well, exactly. So for instance, Live Free, my foundational flagship, everything, right? This is the psychological tactics and skill sets that we need to learn the practical application of. Everybody that comes in to work with me actually utilizes this system. It's 12 weeks. And then there's Evolve. Evolve is my year-long program. But guess what? It starts in the initial 12 weeks with the Live Free system, because it is the foundational thing that we need. So sure, 12 weeks, 3 months is going to give you that foundation. What we do, the now what and what's next after that, because I'll have people say, I'm all in, I want to do Evolve. Okay, great. But sometimes, because I'm really good at knowing who's a good fit for that or who may not need that much, I don't want people just spending money and saying, I want to work with you for a year, because if I don't think that they're even going to need that, then what? Then, we get to, months 6 through whatever, and we're like, it's like they're paying me to be their friend because they were able to grasp the concept, So it's all about that level of severity. So getting that initial 3 months to create a foundation, to create, to get to a state of homeostasis, right? Like, especially if we're removing high levels of alcohol, high levels of whatever, sometimes 3 months, we're barely getting our feet under us.
Yeah.
Back in the day, treatment used to be 90 days. Anymore, we're lucky to get 30. And actually before, it was more of based on clinical assessment, right? You can get 30, 60, 90, and some programs even up to a year. You don't see that anymore, but it was effective. Insurance just don't want to pay for it. So, anyway, sorry, insurance world. I didn't mean to call you out there, but, so we always want to get that foundation, get to a place of solid ground where, we've got our sea legs, and then start looking at now what's next. Do I need esteem building activities? Do I need that conditioning period of maintain, which is part of Evolve, so that I can make it lifelong manageable and maintainable? Or do I simply need a life maintenance package after that, where I check in every 3 weeks to have my trusted provider look and see, or help me see, if there are any complacencies rearing their head? And so I think with everybody, like you said, everybody's different. We need to decipher. And sometimes we can decipher right away. Other times it takes us a little bit of time to realize, because there's more repair to do. There's more repair to do, more training, more learning, more conditioning, more whatever that we need to do. Because if we've got if we've got multiple things on board, if we're over shopping, people pleasing, codependent, sneaky, deceitful drinking, and binge eating, we got some work to do. Right? Especially if we're all in or all out of a diet and exercise routine also. And the weight's going up and down, up and down, up and down. But I'm just so depressed all the time. Well, no wonder you're depressed all the time. Look at the food that you're fueling your body with, the fact that you're adding a depressant, alcohol to that. Right? You're stressing your checking account, which is putting pressure on your relationship. And so sure, that's going to take some time. Right. So we always want to be open. I always tell people, what you see is guideline. It's what the average person that has come to work with me has experienced and where they found the best results. The average person, not every person.
Right.
And so, it's to give you an idea of what our relationship is going to look like. But absolutely. I don't even know what it's going to look like yet because we haven't started it.
Yep.
Right.
Depending where I mean, that description just now is, it's not just one issue, that there's all these different overlying kinds of things, is where to start and where to start to unravel those things. And how do you put those back together in a way that makes sense for where they are? And how do you decide where to start here and which ones? There's just so many variables. And like you said, it's so very individual, and it will shift, it will change. And if the individual is willing to be all, talk about all in on a diet, or well, you can be all in on this too. How do you transfer that willingness to go all in, and maybe not the healthy way, go all in a healthier manner?
Right?
And
all in and learning
it's
how
hard
to create a new way of being.
Yeah.
Right. A new way of experiencing living, one that will be fulfilling to you day in and day out. Of course, with that 10 to 20% of the time where you allow yourself to just relax, to stop self-observation. Like people tell me all the time, I'm so tired of observing myself. And I get it. But the minute we stop observing ourselves, is the minute that we let our guard down and we allow other things in. So you even need to be observant of when and why and how you give yourself that 10 to 20% break. Right. And is it kind of a free for all, or is it a specific day? Is it a specific, whatever? And how rigid is it? Because we need to be more flexible, bendable, pliable, because life happens. Life continues to unfold. And we need to be more resilient. And we need to be open to, I call it learning, right? Get out of that stance of a judger that is, hard and rigid, and move into that stance that is, the stance of a learner, one that is always seeking to, inquiry. I may not know everything about this, but even if I feel like I'm completely right, I still want to inquire to understand other perspectives, other ideas, other, ways of doing it, because you never know when something may serve you, or when it may serve a loved one, or how it might help you maintain a relationship that, even though you have differences of opinions, you still have a great relationship. You just now know what things to not have conversations about, or right.
I think we all have people, relationships, whatever they, familial, friends, acquaintances, colleagues, whatever, that in this very highly sensitive world that we are living in, that there are people in my life that we just have an agreement. There are certain topics we just don't talk about. There's so many other things in the world. The world is full of so many things and experiences and opinions to have. There are just certain places that need to be off limits if we want to continue to have a relationship.
I mean, there are things that are very personal. Don't talk to somebody about their gynecology appointment. right?
Probably not. Yeah.
Right. Well, I'm just saying
Yeah, absolutely.
are just things that are personal. And so I think, you know, there are a lot of categories in our life balance wheel that are personal. My spirituality, right? My life planning category, like those are personal. My health, a lot of it is personal, right? My environment, like what I surround myself with, how I engage in different environments. There are just a lot of things that are personal to me. There's reasons why I don't do some things.
Yep.
Right? There are reasons why I do other things. And I hear this a lot with people that, when they stop drinking. And sure, I hear a lot of people that, just by adopting that mindset of I'm not a drinker, that it makes it easier for them socially. It can absolutely make it that much easier to have that coined phrase. I know it to be true that there's a whole lot more in there. There's what is it for people listening? You know what I'm talking about, right? When we refer to when people in the AA community or the treatment community talk about that white knuckling or the dry addict or the dry drunk, it's because we're just abstaining. That's all we're doing. We're just abstaining. I don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore. I don't do that anymore, which is great. Don't get me wrong, guys. If that's working for you, that's working for you. However, I challenge you to be open, to just get into the stance of a learner and investigate more as to how your emotions really played a role in giving the alcohol, the pills, the controlled substance, the food, the shopping, the whatever, giving that, what is that emotional purpose that we assigned that job to, that whatever it is for you. Because without doing that, you're simply just not a drinker right now in this time and space, and that could change at any moment because you aren't willing to investigate how you got there. How did I come to being somebody that relied on alcohol or food or whatever to soothe me, to reward myself, to I don't know, placate a stressful week or, whatever, right? Like, how did I get there? Because I need to, just like muscle has memory, it's going to come back, sometimes slowly, sometimes quickly, but it always comes back unless you fix the neural pathways, unless you fix some things. So anyway, again, I'm not trying to dissuade anybody from saying, hey, I'm just, I don't drink.
Right.
I don't drink, because yes, do that. And by all means, get comfortable doing that. I do it all the time, especially when you go to those big fancy dinners, and the waiter's always just coming around and pouring and pouring and pouring. I just turn my glass upside down. So because it gets tiresome to say it every time. Right. I started with just putting my hand over the glass, and if you're not paying attention, it ends up full.
Oh yeah. Turning
it over or just handing it to them is better. Like, here, you can just take this.
Well, then what you said, a minute ago was, people who say, I'm not drinking, and kind of just stop there in that action. And then you said, skidding into what the reasons were. And the word skid, I think, is perfect because there's the old ad, like, I'm from the Midwest. So ice and snow were just a thing. And so we're taught at driver's ed your first reaction when something hits you or you hit ice is you go the opposite direction. So I'm not drinking. I'm not eating that. That's the reaction. But they teach you to actually steer into the skid because that's the safer place to be. In steering into the skid, you will find the correction.
Yes. I love that. I'm going to borrow that.
Go for it.
I'm going to borrow that.
The steering into the skid.
California, I know, because I have family in the Midwest, I know to steer into it.
It's
But-
not your first inclination though. It's not people react. You're like, I'm just going to do this. Stop. But if you can learn to steer into that skid, if you can learn to have that additional thought component in a moment that requires an immediate reaction, that opens up the possibility of a greater correction.
Right. I love that. Wow. I think we will definitely be ending on that note. That is a perfect place to end. Well, I love chatting with you, and it's been so long. And I've really been trying to keep this at 45 minutes or under, and here we are at 47 minutes. So wow, everybody, thank you so much for being here. Dee Dee, thank you.
Absolutely.
Gosh, thank you. I think we need to get together and record something that we can just, share out with folks. If not on a regular basis, at least a couple times here and there, so that, of course, you're always welcome to come back. But so don't hang up. I just let's say goodbye to everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Dee Dee will put her link down below so that you will have connections to her, whether it's email, website, whatever Dee Dee wants to provide there for a way for you to get in touch with her. She'll drop it in below. And yeah, we're here for you. Don't struggle in silence. There are people out there that get it. There are people out there that have worked really hard to navigate through and to learn and to educate themselves on how to correct things in their own lives, but also in the lives of others. So even if it's not us, we know somebody that can, right? Dee Dee referred to,
Absolutely.
Working with actual dietitians and nutritionists and whatnot. And I don't profess to be the be all end all. And so, we will connect you if it's not a fit with us. But, so we're a good starting place for sure. And hopefully, we'll have the answers, but if we don't, we're not afraid to ask.
Yep.
Right. Anyway, Dee Dee, don't hang up. Everybody else, we will see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.